Hello again, I'm Tony Neck, Principal of the Sound Healing Academy. In this video, what I want to do is to talk a little bit about a really lovely study, groundbreaking study that's been carried out and reported in a peer-review article, which is fantastic, mostly about Tibetan singing bowls, and then also to talk about and then demonstrate 7 key principles about how you can work with these Tibetan singing bowls in public sound bars to help make them more effective. Okay, so this study is brilliant, right? This is, over the last few years, like 4 or 5 years, there's been an increasing number of research studies published in peer-reviewed journals which are showing that sound healing of the kind that we teach is really effective. Okay, so this one was published in a journal called the Journal for Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine, published in July 2017. And it's called, the title of it is The Effects of Singing Bowl Sound Meditation on Mood, Tension and Wellbeing, an Observational Study. Okay, so you'll be able to download this yourself if you really want to get hold of it. It's, I think you can get it from PubMed. And so it was carried out in California and involved 62 individuals of different genders and different ages, and in 3 different locations spread across, and they all received basically 1 session of the singing bowl sound healing or sound meditation. And there were various indices that they were measured against both before and after. So the 4 main things in this study that they measured were tension, anxiety, a depressed mood, and then also physical pain. Okay, so basically they were looking at whether the relaxation response could be triggered to reduce stress, reduce tension, reduce anxiety, reduce depression, and reduce pain as well, associated with all of these things. And the great news is that, yes, against all of these different criteria, against all of these different assessment points, there were positive results. Okay, so this is really great. And it's only a small study, but it lays a foundation for further randomized control studies to take place, and is great to get hold of. So what I'd like to do now is to talk about the 7 key points from this that you could have as a takeaway in terms of working with Tibetan singing bowls in this kind of setting, in a group setting. Okay, so the first thing to bear in mind is the position, the layout and the position. So in this study, what they did was that they put the bowls more or less in the center of the room, and then they had people lying on yoga mats spread out around those, fanning out, like in a circle or a semicircle around the bowls. And importantly, they had people with their heads lying at the front of the mat closest to the bowls. So in all cases, there were at least 2 bowls that were close to the heads of the participants. So the second key point is that they had a mixture of bowls. They had about at least 25 bowls in each setting, and they had primarily large bowls that were typically, this sort of size, which is sort of 12 inches, or about this size, which is about 10 inches. So these kind of larger bowls which have deeper tones, and when these are played together, they have a long sustain as well, and it's very deep and calming, so it's really great. But they also had smaller bowls as well, typically like 4 or 5 inches, ones like this, that brought out the higher tones. So you got a rich mixture of sounds from the Tibetan bowls. So the third key point was how the bowls were played. Now in this case, they used only a kind of tapping technique on the bowl. So whichever bowl was being played, it was being tapped. Okay, so there was no trying to play around the rim and do any of that. It was just purely tapping. And with that, you can get an effective range of sounds coming out. You can bring out the fundamentals, you can activate the overtones and all of that. So that's really good. Now the fourth thing was, what did they use for the tapping? So they used these kind of mallets, either one with a felt head with a bit of weight to it, or a woven yarn kind of mallet like this. And these all have a great resonant sound created when you tap them. So they avoided using these kind of mallets that are often associated with Tibetan bowls. They certainly didn't use the wooden part, and they often really didn't use the felt or the leather part in this case for going around the rim or tapping them. So it's the heavier kind of mallets like this, that's what was used. So the fifth key element was about the types of instruments that were used. Yes, 90% of the sounds were created by Tibetan singing bowls, but they did have a few other instruments in there as well, just to kind of create a richness of sound. So they had tinctures, like this. They had a range of bells, so this is a Balinese bell. Crystal singing bowls. And gongs. So the sixth key point was, well, what was the sequencing of it? So the first thing is that it was introduced by the person with a calm voice, just to get people to settle down, to relax, to become comfortable lying on the mats, and just to kind of talk them into the meditation. And then primarily the sounds were played, beginning with the tincture, then going into predominantly playing a lot of the bowls, the Tibetan bowls for most of the time, and then bringing in the bell for a little bit, or a number of bells just for a little while, and then the crystal bowls for a little bit after that, and then the gong, or gongs, usually had a couple of gongs, and then back to the Tibetan bowls again, and they'd keep repeating that sequence for the session. And so the final thing then, the seventh point, is how long did it last? Well, the whole thing lasted about 60 minutes. Okay, that included the talking, the playing, and then bringing people out at the end, out of the meditation, back into the room with a bit of talking and allowing for some silence as well. Okay, so those are the key 7 points from this. That's what made it effective. That's what helped people to de-stress and to achieve these kind of positive outcomes in terms of well-being, mood, elevation, and all the rest. So it's fantastic. So this is something that you can do. So what I want to do next is to just do a short demonstration of that, playing all the different instruments there for just a short while, just a few minutes, bearing in mind that for the full session, of course, you'd play everything for a lot longer, especially the Tibetan bowls. Okay, so here we go. Thanks very much.